The man was horrified to discover that two snakehead fish had actually crawled onto the shore. Before he could react, a whole swarm of snakehead fish lunged at him, and in an instant they devoured him completely. Can you imagine that such vicious, man-eating snakehead fish were actually just a bunch of undeveloped young ones? It turned out they weren't ordinary snakehead fish, but genetically modified, mutated ones. Once fully grown, they became massive, with the smallest ones measuring 2 to 3 meters, and the largest could even rival a fishing boat. They could easily devour an adult in one bite. Even crocodiles, known as the rulers of the water, were no more than food in their eyes. A fisherman, unaware of the underwater dangers, was out on his small boat preparing to haul in his nets when suddenly a buoy was pulled underwater. He thought he had caught a big fish, and for a moment he felt a bit pleased, but the next second he was pulled into the water by an unnatural force. When he struggled to surface, his entire right arm was gone. Desperately trying to climb back onto the boat, he was dragged under again. As blood bubbled to the surface, only the boat remained on the water. Soon after, the police received a report that a mutilated body had been found on the riverbank. The sheriff guessed that the man had been attacked by a crocodile. But after examining the body, the coroner, Sam, found that the bite marks didn't resemble those of a crocodile. To get to the bottom of the cause of death, Sam decided to bring biologist Mary with him to investigate the water where the incident occurred. On their way there, Mary looked at the photo of the deceased Sam showed her and agreed that the attacker wasn't a crocodile. Given that the site was quite far from the ocean, it was impossible for a shark to be the culprit. So what creature could have caused such horrific wounds to a human? With this question in mind, they pressed on. But after traveling a short distance, Mary suddenly spotted something. They steered the boat closer and discovered a crocodile lying motionless on the shore. Mary nervously poked it with the boat's oar and was shocked to discover the crocodile was dead and only its head remained. She wondered if the crocodile had collided with the fishing boat, which could explain its decapitation. After all, it was rare for a dominant predator like a crocodile to meet such a tragic end. But Sam disagreed, saying it was impossible because there was no such large boat on this river. Things were becoming more and more bizarre. As they continued their journey down the river, they soon saw a fisherman standing in the water, catching fish with his bare hands. Through a conversation with Elmer, they learned that he was the neighbor of the deceased, John. Sam immediately decided to visit John's home to see if they could find any clues. After learning of their identities, Elmer took them to his own house. There were 3 households in the area, and they had all lived in houseboats, making a living by fishing. Later, through Elmer's introduction, Sam and Mary met John's wife, Gloria, and his daughter, Eliza. Gloria said everything was normal here before, but ever since a storm a few months ago, the fishermen discovered an unfamiliar fishing boat upstream. Since then, strange things have been happening on the river. The once abundant waters suddenly had no fish, and her husband had an unfortunate accident. Could all of this be related to that fishing boat? Hearing this, Sam decided to set off immediately to investigate the mysterious fishing boat and see if he could uncover anything. Soon, Elmer took Sam and Mary to their destination. Because the boat seemed so suspicious, the fishermen had been too afraid to board it. Sam and Mary, however, weren't afraid. Determined to get to the truth, they climbed aboard without hesitation. After some inspection, they found the cockpit to be relatively normal. However, when they opened the cabin, a strong smell of decaying bodies immediately hit them. With courage, they crawled into the hold and, using their camera flashes, discovered several highly decomposed bodies inside. Mary couldn't hold back and threw up after coming out, while Sam discovered a strange fish scale in the hold. It was the first time Mary had ever seen a fish scale that large. Elmer didn't want to stay any longer, so he urged Sam and Mary to leave if they had found nothing important. But just as Mary stepped onto the fishing boat, an accident occurred. At that moment, a massive figure appeared in the water, but they didn't notice it. As Sam reached out to grab Elmer, the terrifying event happened. As Sam drew his gun, ready to shoot and save him, he turned around and realized it was too late. Elmer had vanished into the water in an instant. Watching the river turn red with blood, Sam and Mary quickly sped away in the boat. Although they hadn't seen the creature clearly, they were almost certain it was responsible for killing John and devouring the crocodile. For safety's sake, Sam suggested they leave the area and notify the authorities to handle the situation. The fisherman, with no other choice, reluctantly agreed. But since it was already late, traveling at night would be dangerous, so they decided to wait until morning. To their horror, something terrifying happened that very night. Roland, who had been alone outside, suddenly heard movement in the water. Curious, he knelt by the shore with his flashlight, peering into the darkness. He then saw a strange fish swim by. Roland, shocked, quickly told his wife Bobby about the incident. Just as Bobby stepped out of the room, she was met with a terrifying sight. The strange fish leaped out of the water and bit Roland's head off in one swift motion. The others rushed out after hearing the commotion. When Bobby said there was something in the water, Mary immediately realized that the creature had followed them here. Sam urged Bobby to stay away from the water, but Bobby, having just witnessed her husband's death, had lost her sanity. In a panic, she tried to escape in a small boat. She had barely paddled a short distance when the strange fish targeted her, pushing her boat to the middle of the river. Suddenly, the fish attacked from beneath, flipping the boat over, and Bobby fell into the water. At that moment, everyone finally got a clear look at the creature's massive size, but despite Bobby's heart-wrenching screams for help, they were powerless to do anything. As the creature began closing in on Bobby, Ricardo, one of the fishermen, quickly fired his gun, hitting the monster in the back and temporarily driving it away. But the creature, clearly unwilling to give up its prey, quickly swam back. In that moment of crisis, Sam fired as well, but it was clear that their efforts were futile. In the end, all they could do was watch in horror as the monster fish swallowed Bobby whole. At that point, everyone panicked. No wonder this creature could treat crocodiles as prey. Realizing that the houseboats were no longer safe, Sam decided to take everyone and leave immediately. But just as he was about to start the speedboat, the clever monster fish completely severed their means of escape. With the only boat gone, their hopes of fleeing were dashed. In the midst of everyone's despair, Sam suddenly noticed that the neighboring houseboat seemed to have an engine. They could try to leave by driving the houseboat. The problem was that they weren't sure whether the houseboat would even start, so Sam planned to check it out. However, the two houseboats were only connected by a rope, with an iron barrel hanging from it to carry daily supplies. The rope might not be able to support Sam's weight, and if he fell, the consequences could be disastrous. This task clearly had to be left to someone lighter. Eliza volunteered. With Sam's help, Eliza sat in the barrel and carefully moved forward, holding the rope. But just as she was about to reach the other side, the rope suddenly snapped. The loud noise immediately drew the monster fish's attention. As Eliza desperately tried to climb back up to the houseboat, the creature leaped out of the water, aiming to attack her. Luckily, Sam quickly fired his gun and saved Eliza. Unfortunately, the houseboat's engine was too old and couldn't be started. Sam had also used up all his bullets, and the strange fish in the water was still active. The group stood frozen, unsure of what to do. They turned around and saw Ricardo, who had been busy with something next door. He pulled a catfish from a box, hooked it, and tossed it into the water. It turned out that Ricardo was trying to bait the monster fish with the smaller fish. Sure enough, within seconds, the monster fish took the bait, but its target was Ricardo on the shore. Luckily, Ricardo reacted quickly, not allowing the monster fish to reach him, and managed to use his shotgun to kill it. This was the first time Mary had seen the monster fish up close, and she couldn't identify its species. However, Ricardo lit the grill, then took a machete and cut open the monster fish's abdomen, pulling out its heart and placing it on the grill to cook. Regardless of what kind of fish it was, in Ricardo's eyes, it was just food. After all, the creature had killed so many people, and he felt that the only way to satisfy his anger was to eat it. As they watched Ricardo enjoy his meal, the group naively thought the ordeal was over. Their tense nerves finally started to relax, only to be shocked when, in the next moment, a larger monster fish suddenly lunged at Ricardo. This time Ricardo didn't escape. He was dragged into the water by the monster fish. To their horror, it turned out there wasn't just one strange fish. The survivors were once again thrown into panic. They were unaware that the overturned grill had ignited a gas canister and the shotgun. By the time Mary noticed the danger, the heated shotgun fired a bullet, which struck Mary directly in the head. Before anyone could react, the ignited gas canister flew off and landed on Eliza's houseboat. When Eliza on the roof realized what was happening, the houseboat below was set on fire, and the gas canister exploded. Though Eliza was thrown into the water by the blast and survived, the immense shock caused her to lose consciousness. Seeing this, Sam didn't hesitate and dove into the water to save her. But just as he was dragging Eliza back toward the boat, the monster fish quickly swam toward them. To buy Sam time to rescue Eliza, Gloria quickly used a knife to cut her palm and placed it into the water to attract the monster fish. The smell of blood successfully diverted the creature's attention, and Sam took the opportunity to pull Eliza aboard. But Gloria was now in danger. The monster fish leaped onto the houseboat, and before Gloria could escape up the ladder, the creature caught up with her. Even though Dan reached out to help, the monster fish bit off her lower half. Watching her mother perish to save her, Eliza was overcome with grief. Now, only 3 of them remained alive. For safety, Sam quickly helped Eliza climb to the roof of the houseboat. However, it seemed the strange fish wasn't ready to give up. It began to repeatedly slam into the houseboat, attempting to destroy their last refuge. Under the relentless assault of the creature, the houseboat started slowly sinking. They were powerless to stop it, so they could only wait silently for death to come. Just when all hope seemed lost, and the river water had nearly reached the roof of the houseboat, a speedboat appeared in the distance, slowly making its way toward them. The 3 survivors quickly waved and signaled, warning the boat's crew of the danger lurking beneath the water. But just then, the strange fish launched another attack, causing the crew to fall into the water. One of them tried to swim back to the boat, but he was impaled by the monster fish that jumped out of the water straight into the high-speed spinning propeller and was killed instantly. Fortunately, the other 3 managed to scramble aboard the houseboat. The leader, Jeff, surveyed the situation, seemingly unfazed by the carnage. He simply asked how many monster fish they had encountered. When Sam explained that they had already killed one, Jeff immediately explained the origin of the fish. It turned out that the creatures were genetically modified, mutated snakehead fish that Jeff had purchased as pets on the black market. However, during transport, the boat had been caught in a storm and the crew had lost contact. For months, Jeff had been searching for the lost ship, and it was only after seeing the recent explosion that he had followed the river to this point. He hadn't anticipated that the fish would grow so large in such a short time. He knew he had to find a way to eliminate them. As they were talking, the creature resurfaced, its dorsal fin emerging from the water. Without hesitation, Jeff fired a tranquilizer dart, hitting the fish's dorsal fin with precise accuracy. The dose of the tranquilizer was enough to take down 3 elephants. Anton eagerly wanted to dive into the water to catch the fish. To everyone's shock, the fish didn't fall unconscious. Instead, it leapt from the water and devoured Anton in one swift motion. Jeff wasn't one to back down. He dove into the water to rescue Anton. However, he too found himself in danger. At the critical moment, Sam fired a flare to scare the fish away, saving Jeff's life. Afterward, Jeff climbed back onto the boat, determined to follow the creature's escape route. They chased it all the way until dawn, eventually reaching the fishing boat where they found the monster fish's nest. Jeff suspected that the fish had been knocked out by the tranquilizer, so he ordered Sam to lead the way. He intended to go into the nest and drag the fish out. Reluctantly, Sam dove into the water, with Jeff and Joseph following closely behind. They carefully entered the monster fish's nest. Sure enough, they found the monster fish lying motionless inside, but it seemed to be dead. It was then that Jeff revealed to Sam that he had purchased 3 mutated fish in total. 2 were dead, and only 1 remained. He needed to capture the last one. Just as they were talking, Joseph suddenly disappeared from the water's surface. It appeared that the last monster fish was hiding nearby. Not wanting to be eaten, Sam ignored the danger and fled the nest. Just as Sam climbed back into the speedboat, the sound of gunfire echoed from the nest. They saw Jeff emerging frantically, only to be devoured by the monster fish in the next instant. This last fish was much larger than the previous 2, and Sam immediately started the boat to escape, but the monster fish immediately gave chase, its speed even faster than theirs, and then it crashed directly into their fan boat. Dan lost his balance and fell into the riverbank, narrowly avoiding the danger. The monster fish only seemed interested in the fan boat and continued relentlessly chasing Sam and Eliza. Seeing the trees ahead, Sam came up with a plan to kill the fish. Sam immediately removed the propeller's protective cover, and just before the monster fish could catch up, he and Eliza jumped into the water. Using the high-speed rotating propeller, they managed to kill the final monster fish. However, Dan wasn't so lucky. He thought he was safe, lying on the riverbank and gasping for air, only to see two small monster fish crawl onto the shore. Before he could react, more small fish emerged, swarming and engulfing Dan in an instant. It turned out that the mutated fish had spawned offspring. With so many of them, once they grew, they would become an even greater threat.